Stop scrolling right now because what you are about to hear is not just a story, it is something deeper, something hidden, something that was never meant to be known. So stay with me till the very end, because this story of love, silence, and missed moments might change the way you see people forever. And before you leave, think about someone you have not spoken to in a while, because sometimes the words we do not say become the ones we regret the most. In a world filled with lights, cameras, and endless attention, there are stories that never reach the surface, stories that exist quietly behind smiles and perfect appearances. And in that world stood two people, Wei and Shen Yue. To the public, they were just actors, faces on screens, characters in stories people loved. But behind the scenes, behind the cameras, something else was unfolding. Something real. It started like every ordinary beginning. A film set, long hours, repeated takes, laughter shared between scenes, and the quiet understanding that comes when two people spend too much time in the same space. Miles was calm, composed, the kind of person who rarely showed what he was feeling. Shen Yue carried a soft energy, gentle but strong, the kind of presence that made everything feel lighter. At first, they were just colleagues. Simple greetings, polite conversations, nothing that stood out. But then came the moments in between. The pauses. The silence that felt comfortable instead of awkward. The way their eyes would meet and hold just a second longer than necessary. One evening, after a long day of filming, the set slowly emptied. Lights dimmed, voices faded, and the space that once felt alive turned quiet. Shen Yue stayed behind, sitting on a chair, looking at the ground like she was lost in thought. Miles noticed. He walked toward her, not rushing, not forcing anything, just being there. He sat beside her and said quietly, "You always stay after everyone leaves." She smiled softly, without looking at him. "It feels easier to think when everything is quiet." He nodded, understanding more than she realized. That was the moment everything shifted. From that day on, their connection grew, not loudly, not dramatically, but in small, meaningful ways. They began to talk more, not just about work, but about life. Miles spoke about expectations, about the pressure of always needing to be strong, always needing to meet what others expect from him. Shen Yue spoke about loneliness, about how even in a room full of people, you can still feel completely alone. And somehow, without trying, they became each other's safe place. Late-night conversations became normal. Messages that started simple slowly became deeper. "Did you eat?" turned into "Are you okay?" And "good night" became something they both hesitated to say, because saying good night meant ending something they did not want to end. But not all stories are allowed to grow freely. Rumors started to form. Small observations from fans, comments, questions, assumptions. And with that attention came pressure. Their names started appearing together more often. People began to notice the way they interacted, the way they looked at each other, the way silence between them spoke louder than words. Management stepped in. Advice became warnings. Distance became necessary. And slowly things began to change. Messages became shorter. Replies became delayed. Calls became less frequent. The silence that once felt comforting now felt heavy. One night, Shen Yue sat alone, her phone in her hand, reading through their old conversations. She smiled at some messages, paused at others. Her fingers hovered over the screen as she typed. "Do you think we made a mistake by not saying anything?" She stared at the message, her heart beating faster. And then she deleted it. At that same moment, Miles was standing by a window, looking out at the city lights, lost in his own thoughts. His phone lit up. Her name appeared, but no message followed. He waited, but nothing came. And somehow, that silence said everything. Days passed, then weeks. They met again on set, but everything felt different. The same space, the same routine, but not the same connection. They stood close, but felt distant. Their conversations were shorter, more careful, like they were both avoiding something they could no longer ignore. At one point, their eyes met. And in that moment, everything they never said was understood. But neither of them spoke. Because sometimes, the truth feels heavier than silence. Time moved forward, and eventually the project ended. The final day came quietly.
No dramatic goodbye.
No emotional confession. Just a simple exchange. Take care. You too. And just like that, they walked away. In different directions. But some stories do not end when people separate. They stay. Months later, Shen Yue found herself standing in a familiar place. The same quiet corner where they once talked about life, about silence, about things that mattered. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. She closed her eyes, remembering. The laughter. The conversations. The moments that meant more than they ever admitted. At the same time, Miles was somewhere far away, away from the noise, away from the attention. He had taken a step back from everything. No announcements. No explanations. Just distance. Because sometimes the only way to protect something is to step away from it. One night, unable to hold back anymore, Shen Yue picked up her phone. She stared at his name for a long time. And then she sent a message. I hope you are okay. Minutes passed. Then longer. And just when she thought there would be no reply, her phone lit up. I think about you more than I should. Her heart stopped for a moment. Her hands trembled as she typed back. Then why did we let it go? There was a pause. A long one. And then came the reply. Because some things are not meant to survive in the world we live in. Her eyes filled with tears. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet pain. The kind that stays. They talked that night. Not like before. But honestly. Openly. About everything they avoided. About what they felt. About what they lost. And in that moment, they both realized something. The feeling never left. It was still there. Strong.
Real.
Unchanged. But reality had not changed either. And sometimes love alone is not enough. The conversation ended the same way it always did. Good night. But this time it felt final. Days turned into weeks again. No more messages. No more calls. Just memories. Time passed, but some things never fade. The connection they shared remained, not in words, not in actions, but in the quiet space between what was and what could have been. And maybe that is what makes some stories unforgettable. Not the ones that end perfectly, but the ones that leave something behind. Something you carry with you. Something you feel when everything else is quiet. So before you leave this video, think about someone in your life. Someone you care about.
Someone you have not said everything to.
Do not wait. Do not assume there will always be another moment. Because sometimes, the chance you think you have tomorrow disappears without warning. If this story touched your heart, do not just scroll away. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs it. And subscribe for more stories that are not just watched, but felt deeply. Because some stories are not meant to be forgotten.